Jack had always been an ordinary guy. He worked at a small repair shop in the suburbs, tinkered with old gadgets for fun, and spent his weekends watching sci-fi movies on his worn-out couch. Life wasn't exciting, but it was predictable, and that suited him just fine. What Jack didn't know was that his life was about to take a turn so bizarre, even his favorite alien invasion flicks couldn't have prepared him for it. It all started when he stumbled upon what looked like a vending machine while walking home one evening. It wasn't the kind of vending machine you'd find in malls or train stations. This thing hummed softly, glowed faintly blue, and had symbols etched into its surface that seemed to shift and shimmer, as if alive. Curiosity got the better of him. He pressed one of the glowing buttons out of sheer boredom. The machine whirred loudly before spitting out a small metallic card engraved with more of those strange symbols. Before Jack could toss it aside, a beam of light shot from the device, enveloping him completely. In an instant, everything went dark. When Jack woke up, he found himself standing in the middle of an enormous arena filled with aliens of every shape and size imaginable. Some were towering creatures with multiple limbs and glowing eyes, others resembled floating jellyfish-like beings with translucent bodies. The air buzzed with excitement, or maybe fear, as they all turned their attention toward him. A booming voice echoed across the stadium-like space, speaking in perfect English. "Welcome, contestant! You are now part of the galactic breeding trials. Prove your worth, and you may earn the ultimate prize." Jack blinked, trying to process what was happening. "Wait, breeding trials? Like pets or something?" "No," the voice replied dryly. "This is no mere pet competition. This event determines which species will thrive and evolve based on genetic superiority. And you, human, have been selected. But I didn't sign up for anything," Jack protested, throwing his hands in the air. His voice trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. "Selection is automatic," the voice explained. "Your DNA profile met the criteria during scanning. Congratulations, you're officially competing against the finest specimens from across the galaxy." Jack wanted to argue further, but the crowd erupted into cheers, or at least, what sounded like cheers coming from various alien throats. They clapped with tentacles, stomped with hooves, and emitted high-pitched screeches. Clearly, there was no backing out now. A holographic screen appeared above the arena, displaying the first challenge, survival of the fittest. Below it was a countdown timer ticking down from 10 minutes. Jack gulped. Whatever this meant, he knew one thing for sure: it was going to be wild. As the other contestants began prepping themselves, some flexing claws, others charging energy weapons, Jack realized he had nothing. No weapon, no armor, not even a clue how to survive whatever lay ahead. But then again, desperation had a way of bringing out hidden strengths. Looking around, Jack spotted a discarded piece of metal lying near the edge of the platform. Picking it up, he muttered under his breath, "Well, here goes nothing." The buzzer rang, signaling the start of the trial. Aliens surged forward, each eager to claim dominance. Jack tightened his grip on the makeshift tool, ready to face whatever came next. Little did he know, his unexpected entry into this cosmic contest would soon become legendary. The arena transformed in an instant. What had been a flat, circular platform moments ago was now a sprawling jungle filled with towering trees, jagged rocks, and glowing fungi that pulsed softly in the dim light. Strange creatures scuttled through the underbrush, their eyes reflecting Jack's every move. The air smelled metallic, like blood mixed with rust, and the humidity clung to his skin uncomfortably. Jack tightened his grip on the piece of metal he picked up earlier. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He glanced around nervously, trying to gauge what exactly survival of the fittest entailed. Was this some kind of hunting challenge? A race? Or maybe just pure chaos where everyone fought until only one remained? Before he could think too hard about it, a low growl echoed nearby. Out of the shadows emerged a hulking alien beast with 6 legs, razor-sharp tusks, and glowing red eyes. It snarled, saliva dripping from its mouth as it locked onto Jack. Behind him, other contestants were already battling similar creatures or scrambling for cover. One particularly large alien, A bipedal lizard-like being armed with a spiked club was tearing through its opponent with ease, roaring triumphantly. Jack didn't have time to admire anyone else's strategy. The beast was charging straight at him. Heart pounding, he dove to the side just as the creature barreled past, narrowly missing him. Rolling onto his feet, Jack swung the metal shard wildly, striking the beast's flank. It roared in pain, whipping around to face him again. This time, however, Jack noticed something. The glowing fungi nearby seemed to react whenever the beast moved closer. They flickered brighter, almost as if they were warning signals. An idea sparked in his mind. If these plants reacted to movement, maybe they could serve as traps, or distractions. Without wasting another second, Jack sprinted toward a cluster of the glowing fungi, using them as cover while the beast lumbered after him. As soon as the creature stepped near the largest mushroom-like plant, it exploded in a burst of blinding light and spores. The beast shrieked, stumbling backward as its glowing eyes dimmed temporarily. Seizing the opportunity, Jack darted forward and jabbed the metal shard into the creature's exposed neck. With a final gurgle, the beast collapsed, twitching before going still. Breathing heavily, Jack stood over his defeated foe, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Okay," he muttered to himself, wiping sweat from his brow. "I can do this." But his victory was short-lived. From the corner of his eye, Jack spotted two more aliens closing in. One was the lizard warrior who had been dominating earlier, and the other was a smaller, insected creature wielding dual blades made of crystalline material. Both looked far more dangerous than the beast he'd just taken down. The lizard alien let out a guttural roar, raising its spiked club high. Jack ducked behind a rock formation, heart racing. He needed a plan, and fast. Spotting a vine-like plant dangling above, he grinned. Using the metal shard, he hacked at the base of the vine, causing it to snap free. Then, with all his strength, he hurled it toward the lizard alien, tangling its legs mid-stride. The creature stumbled, giving Jack enough time to leap onto its back and stab the metal shard into its shoulder joint. Roaring in pain, the lizard thrashed violently, throwing Jack off and sending him crashing into the dirt. Dazed but alive, Jack scrambled to his feet just as the insectoid alien lunged at him, blades flashing. Thinking quickly, he grabbed a handful of glowing spores from the ground and flung them directly at the creature's face. The spores erupted upon impact, temporarily blinding the insectoid. Seizing the moment, Jack delivered a swift kick to its abdomen, knocking it backward into a patch of thorny bushes. By the time the dust settled, Jack was battered and bruised, but he was still standing. Around him, the other contestants were either unconscious, injured, or retreating. Even the mighty lizard warrior lay sprawled on the ground, defeated. A loud horn sounded, signaling the end of the first trial. The holographic screen reappeared, displaying a leaderboard. To Jack's astonishment, his name, written in bold letters alongside a crude human icon, was at the very top. "Congratulations, contestant," the booming voice announced. "You have successfully completed the survival of the fittest challenge. Prepare for round 2, the test of intelligence." As the jungle faded away, replaced by a sleek, futuristic chamber filled with glowing puzzles and mechanical contraptions, Jack couldn't help but laugh nervously. Somehow, against all odds, he'd managed to dominate the first round. But intelligence wasn't exactly his strong suit. Still, there was no turning back now. Taking a deep breath, Jack approached the nearest puzzle, a floating orb emitting beams of light in intricate patterns. He cracked his knuckles and got to work, determined to prove that humans weren't just survivors. They were innovators too. The futuristic chamber was eerily silent compared to the chaos of the jungle. Rows of glowing orbs, holographic grids, and mechanical contraptions floated in midair, each radiating a soft hum that seemed to resonate with Jack's nerves. Contestants stood scattered throughout the room, some already engrossed in solving puzzles while others hesitated, clearly unsure where to begin. Jack stared at the nearest orb, which emitted beams of light forming intricate patterns on the floor. It looked like a mix between a Rubik's Cube and one of those brain-teaser games he'd seen kids solve online. He scratched his head, muttering under his breath, "Okay, intelligence test. No problem." I think. But as he stepped closer, doubt crept in. Most of the other contestants appeared confident, their movements precise and deliberate. One alien, a floating, jellyfish-like creature, was rearranging beams of light with mere gestures, its translucent tendrils glowing faintly as it worked. Another contestant, a hulking insectoid being, tapped rapidly on a holographic keyboard, generating complex equations that materialized in shimmering text above its head. Jack sighed. Yeah, this isn't exactly my forte, he admitted aloud. Still, he reminded himself how he'd survived the first trial, not by brute strength alone but by thinking quickly and using what little resources he had. Maybe there was hope after all. He focused on the orb again, studying the way the beams interacted. There were 3 colors, red, blue, and green. Each beam connected to a different point on the grid below, forming shapes that shifted whenever Jack touched the orb. After a few moments of experimentation, he noticed something. The beams aligned perfectly when they formed a triangle. Triangles? He whispered triumphantly. That's got to be it. Carefully adjusting the angles, Jack managed to create a stable triangular pattern. The orb let out a soft chime, and a small section of the floor beneath him lit up, revealing a glowing path leading deeper into the chamber. Encouraged, Jack moved on to the next puzzle. This time, he faced a series of rotating discs etched with symbols similar to the ones on the metallic card he'd received earlier. As the disc spun, certain symbols aligned briefly before spinning out of sync again. Jack frowned. Okay, not triangles this time. He remembered seeing puzzles like this in video games. Timing was key. Focusing intently, he waited for the right moment and pressed down on the center of the mechanism when the symbols lined up perfectly. Another chime sounded, and another segment of the glowing path appeared. By now, Jack was starting to get the hang of things. The puzzles weren't impossible. They just required patience and observation. Other contestants, however, weren't faring so well. A towering quadrupedal alien growled in frustration as it failed to solve a logic grid, smashing its fist into the device only to trigger a loud alarm that temporarily blinded it. Meanwhile, a slender avian-like creature squawked indignantly as its attempt to bypass a security lock ended in sparks and smoke. Jack chuckled nervously. At least I'm not the worst here. His confidence grew with each solved puzzle. By the time he reached the final challenge, a massive, multi-layered holographic maze, he felt almost invincible. The maze required participants to navigate through shifting walls and obstacles using a handheld control panel. Touching the wrong wall or triggering a trap would reset the entire puzzle, forcing them to start over. Jack took a deep breath and began carefully guiding the holographic avatar through the maze. At first, progress was slow. Every wrong turn sent him back to the beginning, and frustration started to creep in. But then he remembered something from his childhood. Mazes always had patterns. If he could identify the repeating sequence, he might be able to predict the correct path. After several resets, Jack spotted it, a subtle zigzagging route hidden within the chaos. With renewed determination, he guided the avatar along the predicted path, dodging traps and avoiding dead ends. Finally, after what felt like hours, the avatar reached the exit. The hologram dissolved, replaced by a bright flash of light and the sound of applause echoing throughout the chamber. When Jack looked up, he saw that most of the other contestants had either given up or been disqualified. Only a handful remained, including the jellyfish-like creature and the lizard warrior from the previous trial. Once again, the leaderboard appeared, displaying names and scores. To Jack's amazement, his name was still at the top. "Well done, human!" the booming voice announced. "You have demonstrated remarkable adaptability and problem-solving skills. Prepare for round 3, the trial of endurance." Before Jack could process the praise, or catch his breath, the chamber dissolved around him, replaced by an endless desert landscape under a blazing sun. The air was scorching hot, and sand whipped violently against his skin. In the distance, a mountain loomed, its peak shrouded in clouds. "The objective is simple," the voice continued. "Reach the summit before your competitors. But beware, this terrain holds many challenges." Jack shielded his eyes from the glare and took a step forward. His legs ached from the previous trials, and his throat was already parched. This wasn't going to be easy. Still, he reminded himself of what he'd accomplished so far. If he could survive beasts, outsmart puzzles, and dominate aliens smarter than him, he could surely climb a mountain. With grim determination, Jack trudged forward, each step sinking slightly into the soft sand. Behind him, the other contestants began their ascent as well. The race was on. The desert stretched endlessly, its golden dunes shimmering under the relentless heat of twin suns. Every step Jack took felt heavier than the last, his boots sinking into the fine sand as if it were trying to swallow him whole. The mountain in the distance seemed impossibly far away, its jagged peaks mocking his resolve. Sweat dripped down his face, stinging his eyes, and his throat burned with thirst. Yet, despite the physical toll, Jack refused to give up. He had come this far. He wasn't about to let a little thing like exhaustion stop him now. As he trudged forward, Jack glanced over his shoulder. The other contestants were scattered across the desert, each struggling in their own way. The jellyfish-like creature floated above the sand, seemingly unaffected by the terrain, but Jack noticed it occasionally wobbled, as though fighting against invisible winds. The lizard warrior, on the other hand, moved with surprising speed, its powerful legs propelling it forward in great strides. But even it paused periodically, likely conserving energy for the long climb ahead. Jack knew he couldn't compete with their speed or unique abilities. Instead, he focused on pacing himself, taking measured steps and scanning the horizon for anything that might help him survive. After what felt like hours, he spotted something glinting faintly in the distance, a small pool of water surrounded by rocky outcroppings. His heart leapt at the sight, but caution tempered his excitement. In a competition like this, nothing came without a price. Approaching cautiously, Jack knelt beside the pool and examined it closely. The water looked clean enough, but he noticed strange ripples disturbing its surface, moving against the wind. Something was lurking beneath. "Great!" Jack muttered. "Of course there's a catch." Suddenly, a tentacle-like appendage shot out of the water, wrapping around his ankle and yanking him toward the pool. Reacting instinctively, Jack grabbed a nearby rock and slammed it down onto the tentacle. It released him instantly, retreating back into the depths with a splash. Breathing heavily, Jack stared at the water, weighing his options. He needed hydration to keep going, but drinking from the pool would almost certainly mean another attack. Thinking quickly, he tore a strip of fabric from his shirt and fashioned a makeshift filter. Then, using the metal shard he'd carried since the first trial, he scooped water carefully, avoiding any suspicious movement in the pool. The filtered water tasted gritty and metallic, but it was enough to quench his thirst temporarily. With renewed energy, Jack pressed onward, keeping an eye out for more hidden dangers. As he climbed higher, the temperature dropped sharply, and the scorching heat gave way to biting cold. Sandstorms whipped around him, forcing him to shield his face with his arms. Visibility became nearly impossible, and the ground grew uneven, littered with sharp rocks and loose gravel. Despite the worsening conditions, Jack pushed through, driven by sheer willpower. He began to notice subtle changes in the landscape, patches of vegetation clinging stubbornly to life, streams cutting through the rocks, and signs of wildlife darting between crevices. Each discovery gave him hope, reminding him that even in the harshest environments, survival was possible. But the trial wasn't just about enduring the elements. Along the way, Jack encountered traps designed to test his resilience. At one point, he stepped onto a section of unstable ground, triggering a landslide that sent boulders tumbling down the slope behind him. He dove into a narrow crevice just in time, feeling the rush of air as the rocks thundered past. Shaken but unharmed, he emerged moments later, determined not to let fear slow him down. Further up the mountain, he faced another challenge, a wide chasm spanned by a rickety rope bridge swaying precariously in the wind. Other contestants were already attempting to cross it. The jellyfish creature hovered effortlessly above the gap, while the lizard warriors sprinted across with impressive agility. Jack, however, had no such advantages. Steeling himself, he gripped the ropes tightly and began inching his way across, every step making the bridge sway dangerously. Halfway across, disaster struck. One of the ropes snapped, sending Jack plummeting downward. Desperately, he clung to the remaining strands, his muscles screaming in protest. Below him, jagged rocks promised a painful end if he fell. Summoning every ounce of strength, he pulled himself back onto the bridge, crawling the rest of the way until he reached solid ground once more. Collapsing on the other side, Jack allowed himself a moment to recover. His body ached, his hands were raw, and his mind screamed for rest. But the summit was close now, he could see it clearly, the peak piercing the clouds above. Gathering his resolve, he stood up and continued climbing, ignoring the pain coursing through his body. When he finally reached the top, Jack found himself standing alone. The other contestants were nowhere in sight, having either fallen behind or failed entirely. Exhausted but triumphant, he raised his fists in victory, shouting into the wind. "Well done, human!" the booming voice echoed once more. "You have proven your endurance. Prepare for round 4, the ultimate sacrifice." Before Jack could question what that meant, the world around him shifted again, plunging him into darkness. The darkness was absolute, pressing against Jack like a physical weight. He couldn't see his hands in front of his face, let alone the terrain beneath his feet. The air felt thick and heavy, almost suffocating, as if the very atmosphere had turned hostile. A faint hum resonated around him, growing louder with each passing second until it became a deafening roar that reverberated through his skull. Suddenly, light exploded into existence, blinding Jack momentarily. When his vision adjusted, he found himself standing in a vast chamber unlike anything he'd encountered before. The walls were made of shimmering crystal, reflecting every movement back at him in distorted fragments. In the center of the room stood a massive pedestal, atop which rested a glowing orb pulsating with an otherworldly energy. Around the pedestal, symbols floated in midair, shifting and rearranging themselves in patterns too complex for Jack to decipher. "Welcome to the final trial," the booming voice announced, quieter this time but no less commanding. "This is the trial of sacrifice, a test not of strength, intelligence, or endurance, but of character. To claim victory, you must prove your willingness to give up something precious." Jack frowned, crossing his arms. "Give up something? Like what?" "The choice is yours," the voice replied cryptically. "But know this, failure to make a meaningful sacrifice will disqualify you immediately." Before Jack could ask further questions, the chamber shifted again. This time, images began appearing around him, holographic projections of moments from his life. He saw himself as a child, tinkering with broken toys in his parents' garage. He saw his teenage years, filled with awkward friendships and late-night study sessions. And then he saw more recent memories, laughing with coworkers at the repair shop, watching cheesy sci-fi movies on his couch, even the quiet solitude of his small apartment. Each memory felt vivid, almost tangible, pulling emotions out of him he hadn't realized he'd buried. Joy, regret, longing, they all surged through him in waves, leaving him breathless. Then, one projection stopped moving, freezing on a particular moment, Jack sitting alone on a park bench, staring at an old photograph of his family. It was a memory he rarely thought about, the day he learned his parents wouldn't be coming home after their plane crash. Tears welled up in his eyes as he stared at the image. For years, he tried to bury the pain, throwing himself into work and hobbies to avoid confronting the emptiness inside. But now here it was, laid bare before him. "What does this have to do with sacrifices?" Jack asked hoarsely, his voice cracking under the weight of emotion. "You carry burdens within you," the voice said gently. "To succeed, you must release them, not because they are meaningless, but because clinging to them holds you back. Only then can you truly evolve." Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing. Was this really asking him to let go of his grief? His guilt? Everything that had shaped who he was? It felt impossible, yet somehow necessary. He glanced at the glowing orb on the pedestal, its light pulsing steadily, almost invitingly. Taking a shaky step forward, Jack reached out toward the orb. As soon as his fingers brushed its surface, warmth spread through his body, filling him with a sense of calm he hadn't felt in years. Memories flooded his mind again, but this time, they weren't painful, they were healing. He saw his parents smiling at him, heard their laughter echoing in his ears. He felt their love, their pride, and most importantly, their forgiveness. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I miss you." The orb glowed brighter, responding to his words. Slowly, the holographic projections dissolved, replaced by a serene silence. Jack lowered his hand, feeling lighter than he ever had before. Whatever burden he'd been carrying had lifted, leaving behind only clarity and peace. "Well done," the voice said, softer now. "You have proven yourself worthy." But just as Jack thought the trial was over, the chamber changed once more. The crystal walls shattered, revealing a new scene, an alien cityscape bathed in twilight hues. Towering spires reached toward the sky, and strange vehicles zipped through the air. Standing in the middle of it all was a familiar figure, the jellyfish-like creature from earlier trials. It approached Jack, its translucent body glowing faintly. Without speaking, it extended one of its tendrils toward him, offering something small and metallic. Jack hesitated before taking it, a medallion engraved with intricate designs. "This is yours," the creature said telepathically, its voice soft and melodic. "A symbol of your triumph. You have earned the respect of our kind." Jack blinked in disbelief. Respect? From an alien species he barely understood? Before he could respond, the lizard warrior appeared beside him, nodding solemnly. Other contestants followed suit, forming a circle around him. Though none spoke aloud, their gestures conveyed unity and admiration. For the first time since entering the galactic breeding trials, Jack didn't feel like an outsider. He felt accepted. "Congratulations, human," the booming voice declared one final time. "You have dominated the competition. Your genetic lineage shall be honored across the galaxy." As the crowd erupted into cheers, or whatever passed for celebration among aliens, Jack allowed himself a small smile. Against all odds, he had risen to the challenge, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't brute force or superior intellect. It was resilience, adaptability, and heart. The alien cityscape shimmered around Jack, its vibrant colors and futuristic architecture blending seamlessly with the twilight sky. Despite the surreal surroundings, he felt grounded for the first time since arriving in this bizarre competition. The medallion in his hand was warm to the touch, its intricate engravings glowing faintly as if alive. It wasn't just a trophy, it was a symbol of something greater, a testament to his journey and the unexpected bond he'd formed with beings from across the galaxy. As the cheering subsided, the booming voice returned, softer now but still commanding. "Contestant, your performance has exceeded all expectations. Your species, humans, possess qualities we had not anticipated: ingenuity, perseverance, and an unyielding spirit. These traits will be invaluable as you join us in shaping the future of evolution." Jack frowned, tilting his head slightly. "Wait, what do you mean join?" "You have been chosen," the voice explained. "Not only to represent humanity but also to contribute to the genetic pool that determines which species thrive in the coming millennia. Your DNA will influence countless generations, ensuring the survival of traits necessary for galactic prosperity." Whoa, Jack stammered, holding up his hands defensively. "I'm flattered, really, but I don't think I signed up for whatever this is. I'm just a guy who fixes broken stuff for a living." The jellyfish-like creature floated closer, its tendrils waving gently. Through telepathy, it conveyed reassurance. "Fear not, human. This honor does not require you to abandon your life. Instead, it allows you to share your essence with the cosmos while continuing your existence on Earth. You are both participant and ambassador." Jack rubbed the back of his neck, overwhelmed by the enormity of what was being asked of him. Sure, he'd always dreamed of being part of something bigger than himself, but this? This was beyond anything he could have imagined. Still, deep down, he knew he couldn't walk away, not after everything he'd been through. "All right," he said finally, exhaling deeply. "If this is what needs to happen, then count me in. But can I at least get some kind of manual or something?" Like instructions on how to be an intergalactic ambassador? The lizard warrior let out a low rumble that might have been laughter, while the jellyfish creature emitted a soft glow, signaling approval. The voice responded warmly. You need no manual, human. Trust in yourself, as you have throughout these trials. We shall guide you when necessary, but your instincts will serve you well. With that, the scene shifted once more. Jack found himself standing on a platform overlooking the alien crowd, the medallion now hanging proudly around his neck. Below him, representatives from countless species cheered, their forms flickering like stars in the vastness of space. For a moment, Jack forgot about his mundane life back home, the repair shop, the worn-out couch, the predictable routines. Here, amidst the unknown, he felt infinite possibilities stretching before him. But reality soon called him back. As the ceremony concluded, the voice spoke one last time. Your journey here is complete, but your role begins anew. When the time comes, you will return to your world, carrying with you the knowledge and legacy of this experience. Until then, rest and reflect, you've earned it. In an instant, the alien city dissolved, replaced by the familiar sight of his apartment. Jack blinked, disoriented, as he sat upright on his couch. His heart raced, and for a moment, he wondered if it had all been a dream. Then he noticed the medallion still hanging around his neck, its glow faint but unmistakable. Over the next few days, Jack tried to process everything. Life went on as usual. He fixed gadgets at work, binged cheesy sci-fi movies, and enjoyed quiet evenings alone. But something inside him had changed. He carried himself differently, with a newfound confidence and purpose. Occasionally, he'd catch glimpses of strange symbols etched into objects, or hear faint whispers in languages he didn't understand. Each time, he smiled knowingly, aware that he was no longer just an ordinary guy. One evening, as he tinkered with an old radio, static crackled to life, followed by a familiar voice. Human ambassador, prepare for contact. Your presence is requested among the stars. Jack grinned, setting the radio aside. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready. After all, he'd already proven he could dominate even the most impossible challenges.